thought I'd start out by announcing what our 4 major events are for the year. If you read the newsletter, you're familiar with these already, but we'd like to give a little bit more detail in terms of what's happening with those events and what you can look forward to. And the first one was scheduled for February 24th, the wine pairing. We met as a board last week and decided with the COVID crisis and things that were going on that we're going to postpone that to a date later decided. But basically it would be an event where we attempt to educate wine and cheese, that type of thing, probably here or at a restaurant downtown. But look forward to that, and Maureen Foreman is arranging that. Again, it was scheduled for the 24th of February, but we're going to postpone it probably in early spring, so keep your eyes open for that. But the next event's kind of new for the society. It's the barn dance, and we'll ask Dennis to come back in. On April 9th, Dennis has arranged a barn dance. We've had some questions today already about what exactly is that.
Well, let me tell you.
It's a barn burner.
It's a barn, that's it. For those of you that are not familiar, barn dance, square dance, round and square, country and western, line dancing, all of that applies. And we have an individual that is going to be the quote caller that's also going to be giving square dance lessons. So if you have never square danced, trust me, I grew up on it. It's great fun. You will have a lot of fun. And he is willing to give us lessons and then call the square dances, and so it'll be a lot of fun. I was talking to him the other day, and he indicated that he has given lessons to a group as big as 3,000 with multiple languages. And he said it was a real challenge because he would give the command, and then he would have to wait for like 7 or 8 translations to happen. So it should be a lot of fun. We've got the caller. We're going to have kind of a chuck wagon type dinner. Lots of music. It's going to be at the farmers market. And you all know where that is, hopefully, on April the 9th.
Hats and boots and...
Yeah, there's all kinds of things. So go out and get your Western wear, get all the frillies on the sleeves and on the chest and on the back and all that kind of stuff. Yep, boots and bling, that's it. So, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So we look forward to putting it all together and seeing you there.
Yeah, it is fun. So as most of you know, at least one event a year is some kind of a dress-up, party kind of theme, and that's our big one for this year. So pay attention to that on April 9th. Also new this year, on June 4th, part of what I bring to the table is a car show. So we're going to do an antique car and open house museum event on June 4th. So that's a Saturday. We'll have what I hope to be 20 or 30 what I call brass cars. Cars with brass radiators, or at least 1940s and earlier, on the lawn as kind of some eye candy and get people to come and draw attention to the museum. I hope to have some folks dressed in period correct clothes. We'll see how that goes with some cotton candy and homemade ice cream, that kind of thing. So kind of a Founders Day almost event, if you will. But look forward to that on June 4th. And the 4th big event, of course, is the auction. This year it's on November 19th. So we look forward to the auction and the big fundraising that it provides. Okay, so those are the 4 big events. Mark your calendars for those. And before we get into the program tonight, a couple of quick points. The board met last week to talk about the 2022 budget, and I'm happy to announce we've proposed and approved that budget with 2 significant successes, let's call them. One is the museum director's salary. We were able to finally get that on the budget. And 2 significant loan reduction payments of $5,000 each. So that also is very significant. And with those major expenses or challenges, we are still net positive for the 22 budget. So that was important to me. And that is the budget of record anyway. So we'll see as we go forward how that works. So that's the budget. I'd also like to quickly recognize our corporate sponsors for this year. We've had 5 already signed up for 2022, including Journals and Ledgers, Jennifer Camp with the Edward Jones Group, Table Talk, Coffee by David, and Sonoy Engineering Solutions from the Millers. So Those 5 are already signed up for us for the 2022 corporate sponsors. We had 18, I think, last year, and we're looking to grow that figure this year, along with our general membership. Some of you are aware of the membership increases. Some of those dues that came due this year was to support that budget that I just mentioned. So thank you for understanding that and supporting that. So, what else? I'd like to hand it over to Maureen for some museum news and events or successes from last year.
Okay, thank you. I won't hold you long. As you may already know, the Society bought this building that we're in 1990. We turned it into a museum in 2010. Did I get that right? Got that right, okay. What you may not know is that every year since 2010, there has been an annual report of the museum submitted to the Society. So we have now for tonight the 2021 Museum Annual Report. If anyone would like a copy of that, Jim will be happy to hand you one. It's a list of our goals, our accomplishments, and our highlights. Keep in mind that it is a museum report, not a society report. The museum is only a tiny part of the whole society. So what you see there is what we accomplished within these walls. I think it's a rather impressive list myself. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you was that everything you see inside this museum has been donated to us. So every month the museum team meets and we officially and formally acquire, because we have an acquisitions policy, we acquire things officially. So as an example, this coming month we're going to acquire a 2015 Memorial Day festivity t-shirt from the DBA and 3 of these massive, I can't even lift it, these massive Farmers and Merchants daily statement books from the Farmers and Merchants Bank. This one's from 1926. If you want to, after we're done, try to pick that up and see what it'd be like to be. Yeah, because it weighs a ton. And I point this out to you to show you the range of the kind of artifacts that we're looking for. I mean, we're looking at 1926. And we're looking at 2015. So, and everything that we have is not on display. We have a lot of stuff archived. So this t-shirt will join our little bin of t-shirts that is growing and just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So if you have any Sonoy related item and you would like to donate it to us, we would be happy to consider adding it to our archives and our galleries. So that, and we're also always looking for docents. So if you would be interested in joining the museum team, if it sounds like something that you would like to get involved in, please see me after the program. And that's it for me. I'm sorry. I always have something else to say. If you take a look at the annual report, you'll see in there numbers that reflect the fact that we were closed here from January to April because we were getting these lovely chimneys taken care of and fireplaces taken care of. So those numbers and everything we accomplished, we did just from April till December. So I'm pretty proud of all that.
Yeah, nice job.
Very nice job.
Apparently the board was supposed to wear sunglasses tonight. All right, so we're going to start our normal program. I'd like to introduce Beth, and she'll introduce our special guests, and I'll close after that.
Okay. Thank you, and welcome Facebook viewers. We're so glad you're tuning in. I hope you're all well. If you're not, then speedy recovery to you. And welcome to everyone here. You're probably thinking, first Dennis and now Beth is back. What's going on? Because I was supposed to be out of here. But you may not know that the first 3 programs of the new year are always planned before the end of the previous year. And that way we can put those details in the newsletter for the first quarter. So my successor is here this evening, Shauna Mooney, and she's going to come up and say a few words. Shauna's a really smart cookie because she figured out, you know what? The tenure should be from April to March. That's what the calendar tenure should be. So for her first year, see what I did there, Shauna? That will be her term from April to March. So anyway, here is Shauna Mooney.
Thank you. I haven't done anything yet to deserve that. I just wanted to say hello. It's going to be a hard act to follow, as Beth has had some really exciting and fun programming here. I have already started brainstorming, and I will start reaching out to people soon. So if you guys have any ideas, feel free to spit them at me, and I would love to make them work. Yeah, I'm looking forward to helping out. Yay!
Normally, when we have guests come for a program, and I'm going to turn around, I ask them to send me some sort of brief bio so that I can kind of familiarize myself with them, and then turn that information over to those who take care of our newsletters and flyers and so forth. And I try to always sort of memorize that and then summarize it for you. Well, when I got Lee's and Scott's, they're funny. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to just try to wing it. I want to read you some of the things that I got from them on their bio before I get to Lee. Scott and Cindy Ludwig are members here, if you didn't know that, of the society. And so anytime we can promote one of our own, it's huge for us. And we're just so grateful to support Scott in this endeavor. But he's a really impressive guy. So I will start with him. Scott lives, runs, and writes here in Sonoy. He and his wife Cindy are both University of Florida graduates and die-hard Gator fans. Now, it didn't say, did you meet in college? Or was it a happy coincidence later on?
In high school.
Oh, in high school. And then went together to Florida. Okay, cool. Scott's been writing all of his life, which I love that. And since the turn of the century has written over 100 columns for various running periodicals, more than 300 for the Noonan Times-Herald, Fayette News, and Albany Herald, and has authored 21 books so far. So those, 5 of which of those were written during the pandemic. His ultimate goal is to write at least 5 more books, giving him one more than the Coweta County author who has authored the most books and, coincidentally, is Scott's favorite author. Anybody guess? Lewis Grizzard, of course, but I just thought very ambitious, and I know you're going to catch him in. It's a done deal. And then our second guest tonight is Lee St. John. Lee started her journalism career in 1970 when she had a column for the Rockdale Citizen newspaper as a senior in high school. Early achiever. Majoring in journalism in college, she continued to write columns over the next 50 years. How she did that at only 39, I'm not sure. For the Rockdale Newton Citizen newspapers, the Coweta Times-Herald, and the Fayette News. She was encouraged to write a book by her publisher at the time at the Citizen. After retiring from teaching, she became a best-selling author, Final 4 in Essays for Georgia Author of the Year, and Irma Fombach, humor writer, and a contributor to Chicken Soup for the Soul. She can be found on every social media and is a popular speaker of observational humor. And here's the funny part. She's been married, well, not this part. She's been married for 38 years, has 2 sons, and a tater-tot-looking dog named Obi, who reads monthly fairy tales through YouTube for the Peachtree City Library as their storytelling dog. So, I'm sorry, Obi's not here. We'll have to book him for one of the...
He looks like a tater tot.
Oh, that's awesome. So, Scott was very gracious and said ladies first, so please bring to the stage Lee St. John.
If you don't want me to see that for the camera. Thank you, Beth. Okay. All right, I'm a retired teacher, and I was a cheerleader in high school and college, so I really do not need it when I see I need it for the camera. It's a good thing I'm not holding anything, because normally I gesticulate all over the place. My real name is not Lee St. John. It is a pen name, a pseudonym, a nom de plume, and I came about the name because I have 2 millennial sons who are not listening to anything that I have to say, and so I decided that I would stick it to them, because my mantra was, don't get mad, get even. And so I named my pen name Lee and John, that's their names, and I'm a saint for having raised them. And I would say to them, would you like to have me read my latest essay or story? And they would say, no, 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 we don't want to hear it. And I'd say, well, why not? I'd like to read about some of the family funnies. And they said, no, Mom, we lived it. Why would we want to hear it again? I wanted to say, because it's from a parental point of view.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided I would come back and get them, you know, this line from Animal House, don't get mad, get anything. And that's what I did. So I slapped their name on all of my books, and now they're paying attention because, you know, their name's all over the covers. I was a teacher, as it's been said, and retired teacher. And so my husband said something about, well, he retired at 30 years, and he said, why don't you just quit? I had 17 years under my belt. And he said, why don't you quit with me and we'll travel and do some of those things. And I said, well, sure, okay, you know, I'll do that with you. And so we did a little bit of that, but then, I don't know, he took on a consulting job, so now he's back, you know, working because he's an accountant, and that money is really good when when you're consulting. So he just cannot let that go. So now that left me with, well, what am I going to do? You know, I tried dance, and I went through ballet, line dancing, tap, all the kinds of different dances that you could think of, lessons. Then I said, well, maybe I'll do art. I was an art major for about 10 seconds when I was in college, and I'll tell you a quick side story. That happened to be when I changed it from being an art major, because I started off in music, then I started off in voice. Obviously don't know, I'm an only child. I have to entertain myself, okay? So I did all these things out there, and I was in art class. Now you have your morning classes. Those are the ones you have, math, English, the whole thing's in the morning. And then the afternoon, you have the lab, the art lab. And my professor said, I want you to look outside. And I want you to look at what they're doing. Look how pretty it is this spring. And be inspired by all the pretty flowers and the blooms. And I looked out the window, and all I saw were my classmates and friends lying out, drinking beer on a mat, you know, out there getting some sun in the spring. What am I missing? You know, be inspired. Yeah, I was inspired. I was inspired to go play with them. So that was out the window. So now I'm going through these different things about what can I do with myself? Book club, you know, bridge, and I went through several kinds of activities. So finally I thought, well, I think I'll just go back and sub. I've only been out about 4 or 5 years, and I taught 9th grade at Northgate, the gifted classes, and I thought surely I'm going to see some students that I've had, maybe I could recognize their brothers and sisters, you know, there might be a family resemblance or something out there. So I was hoping I would run into families and old teacher friends and stuff. Got to the classroom, and I didn't see any faces that I recognized that might be a family that I taught. Now, are you familiar with block scheduling? Okay, if you don't know what block scheduling is when we were going to high school, we usually had 6 or 7 classes in a day, about 1 hour each, and we went the whole year that way. Block scheduling is 90 minutes, and you get all the number of hours to get the Carnegie unit credit, but you get it in a semester. It's like getting them ready for college. You know, you know how you go to college, take a break at Christmas, come back, and you start a new lesson and new academics. So that's what it is. They're getting you ready for college to get it over with, get your unit, and move on and do it that way. So as a substitute, now it was an English class, so I was familiar with how this works. And it was 11th grade, and I've taught 11th grade before. So I thought, okay, I can do this. And the teacher's plan comes in, and if you've ever subbed, has anyone ever been a substitute teacher? All right, they give you, the teacher, to make it easier on them, will get the lesson written out, and then it makes it easier on the kids, because it's going to be something like read pages 71 through 79 and answer the odd number only questions at the end of the chapter. And then it makes it easier on her to come back, because the children have progressed. They have moved on to a new idea in the teaching lesson, so she's not skipping a beat there, but it's just kind of dull, you know. So, but it makes it easy on everybody. She comes back, she gets the paperwork, the kids are busy with the busy work, and the sub doesn't have to really teach if they can't teach. And so they just implement. Well, I can't sit still, and I just thought, oh no, 90 minutes, what am I going to do with myself? 90 minutes, I can't stand still, sit still, so I went, oh, I've got it. So what I decided to do was have the first class come in. Now this is how Lee St. John became. I'm trying to tell you about Lee St. John. She's a prankster and stuff. So they didn't know this was going on in their classroom, but I had them come in. They sat down, started the work. And I started talking like I was from England. And so for 90 minutes, I told them that I had lived in Manchester and that we knew Kate Middleton and that we were so happy that this princess was going to be our future queen. And I talked about how the Middletons were a lovely family. And I did all of this in 90 minutes to let them know that I came from England. Well, they were like, all right, they leave. The next class comes in, and there's another 90 minutes. And this time, I am talking like I am from France. And I do a whole lot of French words like you need to do some more concentration. And I thought, oh my goodness, I sound more like a Pepe Le Pew because the Looney Tunes, and I really do, but they're just 16. What do they know? And I would talk about being and living in France. Okay, they leave. Then the next group comes in. And this time, I'm doing my South Georgia. From France? She's from South Georgia. Okay, I had a great time. They didn't know, no harm done. I was having a great time entertaining myself. So now I'm trying to make up my mind with all these things. I remember my publisher at the Rockdale Citizen saying to me, because I'm kind of verbose, have you noticed? And so I heard him saying, you need to write a book one day. Well, I thought I had done that. So I decided I would try to gather all my stories from up here and put them down before I couldn't remember them from up here. And I got so involved, like Scott's what should I say, your aspiration would be Lewis. Mine was Irma Bombeck. Now, Irma is not living anymore, but they still have, because of her contribution in Dayton, Ohio. She went to the University of Dayton, and so the family, when she died 22 or 3 years ago, sent all her papers and her columns to the University of Dayton because she resided there and she wrote there and lived there, and so they gave all the papers. And then they started thinking, we need to do something for humor writers. I mean, there's so many other workshops out there, but there's nothing specifically that I know of for humor writers except the Irma workshop. And it's not just for women. I mean, it really is for any humor writer. So I was writing the books, and there's nobody for me to play with. Everybody's doing novels, the great novel, and it's going to be mystery, or they could be memoirs and stuff, but there were just not humor writers for me to connect with in noon. So I went, got a plane ticket. In fact, boy, was it hard to get so many can be accepted at the workshop. But I got in that first year. I was on the phone as soon as the lines were open. And I went up to Dayton, and we were taking all these workshop classes. And one was having you to have confidence when you stand up in front of other people. Some writers don't like all the noise or the attention. So I had no problem with that. And one of the workshop directors was a comedian, and she'd been on the Tonight Show and had been, in front of Jay Leno and done all kinds of stuff. And I didn't know her though. Her name was Wendy Lieberman, and so she was conducting this workshop about how to not have stage fright when you're standing in front of a group of people, so that authors could get up and talk about their book. And I told her at the end of the workshop, that little session, I said, I just want you to know that I really do dialects. She said, do them. So I did all the dialects that you just heard. And so she said, you've got to do that Southern accent. And I went, oh, I don't know. What if they get mad at me? Because who's really that Southern in North Georgia? I mean, in South Georgia. And she said, no, you've got to do that. So I was called up to be on stage for something else at the Irma workshop, and it was only just like for a minute for me to talk. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take her advice. So when I got up to present what I had to present, I did the accent the whole time. And people came up to me later, and they were saying, oh, we love your accent. And I answered, do you really? And what? Because I was doing and imitating. And they thought, because there were 300-something people there, international people attending the workshop, and they hadn't met me personally, so they really didn't know that I didn't have that Southern accent. So I decided, and this is going to be it, that I'm going to, from now on, when I read from my stories from the books, and that I talk to people when I'm talking with my engagements, that I'm going to be doing this Southern belle, Southern accent everywhere I go. Did you notice I had a double syllable in well? And that's what I do. So Lee St. John, who's not real in real life, whose accent is not real either, but it does, I tell you what it has done for me, it has slowed me down. Did you notice how fast I talked when I was talking? But now that I have to think, I guess, about this accent, no, I could do Cockney too. I almost thought about doing it. If they had another class, I might have done a Cockney, and I could have done that accent too. Or an Italian. I have a dog, and I do voices with him as well, and I could do a little bit of Italian, and I could do some of that. But I do the Southern, and I'm enjoying it. And people say, I haven't heard that accent in 20, 30 years, because I do speak to a certain group of a certain age who are from the South mostly. And if they're not from the South, they get to hear Lee St. John speak this way. And now that you know that I'm a prankster, that's what my book's all about. They're pranksters. They're pranks for the family, including me. You can't mock other people if you're not mocking yourself. That just wouldn't be right, especially in today's environment. You can't mock anybody and I'll hurt their feelings. Well, I mock me too. And then I have my essays from my newspaper columns. And then I have, since I was a teacher, things that have happened in the classroom. Now, all of these are real. Those silly, silly things, like I just told you, are real. And that's the stories from the classroom, from kindergarten through college. They're not all my stories. They are my friends' stories, too. But they're real, and you won't believe it. Well, you've been in a classroom. You know the crazy things that happen. Well, they're in there. And thank you so much for having me tonight. I would love to come and speak to any group, anytime, and I can read from my stories. I'm going Saturday to the DAR. I do a lot of DAR, retired teachers, church groups, things like that. And I will come, I've got all kinds of stories from real estate. I've sold real estate for John Whelan, know who he is. Okay, well, I've done that too. So I want you to know, I have some stories that can, and my father was a coach and my mother was a teacher, and I've got some stories about that. So please invite me, and thank you for having me tonight. And I'll have some cards up here so you can take one home with you if you want to.
What kind of accent you gonna have? Watch that
What am I doing? Oh, don't be on that?
Yeah.
As Maureen mentioned earlier, Cindy and I have been married for quite a while, and people ask me all the time, when did you start running? Well, I started running in graduate school. That was in 1978. A lot of people think your two grad school professors were runners, so they got you started, right? Well, that's part of the story, because they helped a lot. But the truth of the matter is, after we got married the first year, somebody looked at me one day and said, and I quote, "You're fat, go run." That was in the summer of '78. So I started running with my two grad school professors. And starting on November 30th of 1978, I've run every day since. So there's a little society called the Streak Society, and I think I've got the 20th longest streak in the country right now, but I'm still, as I always will be, 9.5 years behind the leader. But anyway, as every runner wants to do, I wanted to write a book. So keep in mind, this was in 1978. So in 2007, I finally put it together and put my first book together. It was called Running Through My Mind, subtitle Confessions of an Everyday Runner. Okay, the running through my mind is because that's how I write. I write while I'm running in my head. The Confessions of an Everyday Runner, every day is 2 words, so it makes literal sense. So I said, well, I got to get this published. So I sent it off to a publisher, and he wrote back and he says, nobody wants to read biographies about runners, they want training books. So what did I do? I wrote 2 more biographies. And somehow the third one caught on, and actually a headhunter, I didn't know publishers had headhunters, but they had a headhunter come after me to see if they could buy the rights to my book. So I said, well, sure. So keep in mind now, the first 3 books were self-published, and the third one was about a run through Death Valley, 135-mile race that me and 23 other people who are profiled in the book ran. So I went to a race in South Africa, and they knew about my book, and they asked me, they bought 50 copies, they wanted me to autograph them. This was in Johannesburg with armed guards around our lodging. So anyway, they gave those out as incentives at the race, and in the next year and a half, the book sold like 5,000 copies. And that's when the headhunter came calling. So up until that point, the royalties were coming in every quarter, pretty nice checks. And then when the company took over, it was a company in Germany called Meyer Meyer, the next royalty rolled in, and then it kind of dried up. So I don't know if the book outlived its usefulness or what, but it didn't sell that well anymore. In the future, I wrote 3 more for them. They didn't sell so good. They kept telling me that the German owner of the company was going to come to America, and he wanted to meet me and make me one of their star writers. And the guy never came. The next thing I know, my editor went to another company. And so I was on my own, which that's fine, because I'd rather do it on my own anyway, because I seem to have good luck before I'm looking for that miracle again. So I did write notes, because if I don't, I'll be talking until midnight instead of 10:30, which we said. So to keep me on track. So anyway, one year, I get inspired by the weirdest things. One time, a girl that I worked with said, hey, why don't you write down the best and the worst thing that happens to you every day for a year and see what you come up with? And I said, okay. So the first day I wrote it, and I ended up writing a whole, couple pages about it and all that. So I tried the next day, I wrote down 2 things, and it kind of turned into a story. So OCD guy says, I want to see if I can write a whole story every day for the whole year. So, long story short, I did. It came out to be 2 books, and it should have been 4 because it came out to 1,046 pages over 2 books. And the book titles were called Everything But My Life, Everything But By B-U-Y, the book, parts 1 and 2. And so I sent them to the publisher of the paper at the Noonan Times Herald, which is a paper I always wanted to write for because you know who wrote there. Okay, before I went to work for the HAC in the Chicago Tribune. And Walter Jones called me in one day and he talked to me, and he said he wanted me to start writing. I said, when? He said, this week. So I started writing for the Noonan Times Herald in December of 2016. Since that time, as a joke, 3 years ago, I was writing a recap about college football the first weekend. I sent it in. And I said, God, we want you to write that every week as a sports column. So I started doing that. I've done it for 3 years now. And this is really hard for me because I'm a Gator, and that means I don't like. Little side note, if you look at the Times, anybody read the Times Herald? Somebody does. They asked me as a favor to them to write a column about Georgia Bulldogs and their championship. So I did. And it's in Wednesday's paper. And it's the first, last, and only thing I will ever say positive about it. I'm not going to do that again. If I do, it'll be 41.
It's been just 40, what?
It'll be 41 years from now, and I probably won't see it, so I'm not too worried about it. So anyway, also, I started writing for the Fayette News a couple of years ago, and I started writing for the Albany Herald. I wrote the 20th column for them, came out today. And why did I write to the Albany Herald? Well, I wrote to the 10 biggest circulation newspapers in Georgia hoping to hit that lightning strike again. And Albany came back and says, yeah, we want you to write for us. So I've been doing it for Albany for a while now. And the bad thing about Albany is they have something called a squawk box. And the New York Times Herald used to have that. It was called Sound Off. But it got so out there that they quit doing it. Well, squawk box, they do it. And good, bad, and indifferent. So, I guess the bad thing about it is if people have something good to say about one of my columns, it goes in the squawk box. If they have something good to say about my columns, it goes directly to the editor or to me. In other words, the general population doesn't see it. So I'm the big heel down there. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. I also put some of the columns that they're very generic in nature. I'll put them in the Facebook pages. I think We Love Sonoy, and the other one's called Sonoy Locals. So I noticed some of the members in the SAHS read it through that venue, which means you're not subscribing to the paper. So that's not good. So, okay, let me go see where I am. This is to keep me on track now. My inspirations, as you know, is Louis Grizzard. I've also been inspired by Rick Riley, who is my favorite sports writer. If you've never read Rick Riley, he is the wittiest guy I've ever read. Dave Berry, I think we've all seen something by Dave Berry. I think that guy's hilarious, and he's so creative. And Pat Conroy, just because he's the best writer I've ever read, by far. He's just, everybody's read Pat Conroy, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Or at least seen a movie written by Pat Conroy. So I guess that counts. So anyway, I was going to talk about the books that,
Are you still online?
these books here specifically, because I did write 5 books during the pandemic. And if the pandemic continues like it will, I think I'll have 2 more before the pandemic's over. But the first one is Southern Charm. Most of my books, I call them short attention span theater. So if you sit down, with your coffee, go to the bathroom, you want to read 5 minutes before you fall, not off at night, these are perfect books to read. I did try my hand at writing a fiction novel once. It came out pretty good, but the thing about writing fiction is like you're telling a whole lot of lies and you're trying to keep them all straight. It's really, really hard to do. So when you see these 400- and 500-page fiction novels, hats off to the writers. You gave me that for a reason, didn't you? Some people have bad hair days, bad voice days. Hold on. So anyway, Southern Charm was the first book it's a compilation of my first 101 columns for the New York Times Herald. And it was supposed to be 100, but I miscounted. So now every book in the future is going to have 101 columns. Because you know why. So, let me back up 1 second, because I know we're all about preserving the history of Sonoy. So, the publisher for the Times Herald asked me last year to do a lot of stuff on people in Sonoy, people, places, and things in Sonoy. So I've done quite a bit of writing about Sonoy. See what you're missing if you don't have a subscription. But I've written some stories. Let me think. Hold on a second. I've written about a stray dog in Harrelson that got adopted here in Sonoy. I called that one called The Ambassador of Harrelson, if you've read it. I think a lot of people saw that on the Facebook sites because they donated to a GoFundMe that paid for the medical expenses. I've written about a church, a pastor who's with us tonight. Brooks? The title of the column was The Sermonator. Show them why.
My kids gave me the shirt.
I wrote a column about our Memorial Day festivities. That was a special request to them, and I wrote it, and it was the longest column I ever wrote for them, and the only one they ever edited. And I felt so bad because Gail Downs asked me to write it and include as many names as I could. So I included everybody that was flying overhead, and everybody that was in the parade, and I talked about Ellis Crook and them singing happy birthday on his 90th birthday, and all that stuff got cut. So I put the original one in the Sonoy Facebook sites. That's why I started put stuff in there. I wrote about our car show, East Coweta High School, specifically one of the runners that lives in Sonoy, a column about the cross-country team, and their basketball coach, who's a very talented guy if you haven't met him. Some of our residents, and one column about this very museum. Specifically, it was called A Ton of Bricks, and it was talking about these 4 fireplaces and what went into replacing them. Let me know when it's 10:30, okay? Okay, here we go. Southern Trump, I just wanted to highlight some of my favorite stories. I wrote a column called Voting Rights and Wrongs, and it was basically talking about how it's a great privilege to be able to vote, and that 100 million people that could vote didn't vote in the last election. I thought that was a bad thing. So, and I mentioned how in the Atlanta mayoral race, a candidate by the name of Laban King got 0 votes. So I thought that was horrible that he didn't even vote for himself. Well, guess what I got in my email? A note from Laban King. So what happened to him, he was going to run for mayor, and at the last minute he pulled out. And officially, his name was already printed on the absentee ballots. He had to be counted as a candidate, and any votes cast for him were thrown out. So I told him I would make amends, and I wrote a follow-up column called Doing the Right Thing. And I made amends to that, and then a lot of high school teachers that I owed some payback to, and like that. So this is kind of, I wrote a guy that lives in Sonoy wrote to me, and he said that his son wants to be a writer and he's also a runner. Could I come have coffee with him? So I went over to his house. He happened to live right by my son, and it was really cool because he was telling all these old stories about how in high school he hitchhiked his way to Miami. This was before they had interstates. How he used to go to the airport and watch the planes fly overhead and see the smoke coming out of the planes. How Truett Kathy one time grilled hamburgers for him and his wife at the original Dwarf House. And it was really cool. And then after that, the column came out. I love the title, Perfect Stranger, because I never met the guy. He never met me, and he said, come over to my house for coffee. And his daughter asked if I would give him a copy of the column to her so she could frame for his 80th birthday. So he's got it hanging in his living room. I thought that was kind of neat. He also told me he found my phone number in the phone book. I said, what's a phone book? But I can't remember what they are, but that's what he used. I wrote it. This column is, I wrote this on Father's Day many years ago. I lost my dad in 2007, but the column is called Baseballs in Heaven. It's about paying tribute to your father on Father's Day. And the reason it was called Baseballs in Heaven, because when I was little, my dad used to take me out in the yard, and he'd wind up with a baseball, and he'd take it behind his back, and he'd throw it up in the air, and it would never come down. I said, Dad, where'd it go? I said, went to heaven. I said, God, you have such a strong arm. What are you doing? He was reaching back and putting it in his pocket, but I never saw that. So I threw it. It never came down. I was always so impressed with him because he could throw the baseball all the way down. So anyway, it was a column mainly about my dad and dads in general. And one of the fellow columnists, he was a 26-year policeman for the Atlanta Police Department. He wrote his column that week, and he said that it made him cry when he read it. So I got the reputation as being, oh, you're the guy that makes people cry. Which I didn't think that was, I guess that's not a bad thing. Yeah. So my second compilation of 101 is called Southern Comfort. This is one of the pandemic books. The Ambassador of Harrelson, that one about the adopted dog in the air, the museum stories in that one. My favorite story, I have two really favorite stories. One's called One Toke Over the Line. Remember that song? So anyway, we were up at the cabin with Cindy. Cindy and I were up at the cabin with her two brothers and their wives. And we were seeing who had the coolest close encounter with a famous musician. So Cindy and I went first. Both of us independently, because we didn't know each other when we were 12, saw Jimi Hendrix. She saw him when he opened for the Monkees and he walked off the stage. And I saw him when he played at the Waikiki Shell in Hawaii. My parents took me. That was my first concert. Okay, I thought that was a good start. We also met Bill Medley once, and the guy that replaced the other guy, I can't remember his name. He's an Auburn grad, and he signed the CD for me. It says, "Go Gators." It's the only time an Auburn grad probably ever wrote that. So that was a cool story. So Cindy's sister, or sister-in-law went next. Her sister sang with the Allman Brothers. So you see where this is going. There's always one up to the next guy. That's pretty good, right? Okay, then her brother went, and he went to the high school where his gym coach was Leonard Skinner. So you know who his classmates were. Okay, our other sister-in-law went last, and she wins, as you know where I'm heading. So she said that her first husband, they were living in New Jersey, she had 2 small kids, and her husband was in a fledgling band, and one night he came home and he brought his bass player Roy Page with him and 2 other scruffy-looking guys, and the 4 of them went down in the basement. So they were jamming for a while, and then something started floating up the stairs that she didn't want in the house with her 2 children. So she opened the door to the basement. "All right, everybody out." So her husband came first. We're all doing this with her out like that. So husband came first. Roy Page came next. Behind Roy Page was Roy Page's cousin, Jimmy Page.
Oh my gosh.
Guitar player for the Lift Up. And behind him was Jimmy Page's good buddy, Eric Clapton. Still my favorite story. And then there's another, it's a very long story. It was a lady I met through a friend. Her name was Eva Gerlitz. And she lived in a assisted living facility in Peachtree City. So this story actually ran in the Fayette paper. And she was writing her life story, her autobiography. She had it on a yellow legal pad, and she wanted me to write just a column in the paper for her about her story. But basically, she was 12 in Berlin during World War II in Nazi Germany, and she said Hitler ordered all the children out of Berlin, and her parents sent her away, and she stayed in Austria for about a year, and she knew the bombing was getting worse and worse, and she knew she had to get back to Berlin to reunite her family. And so she persuaded a German Gestapo guy on a train to let her ride in the cargo section to get back to Berlin. And when she got back to her home, it was leveled. So she went to the hospital and found her mother, who had some really bad damage because she was in the house when the bomb, made the house collapse. And she couldn't find her father. He wasn't in the hospital. She didn't know if he was dead or alive. And she walked to the next hospital, and that hospital was bombed, but only half of it was bombed. The other half was still staying. And her dad happened to be staying in the. So anyway, she reunited her family. And the story was called The Diary of Eva Gerlitz, and it's in that book. And we decided that, like I said now, she was writing her autobiography off of that yellow legal pad. And she said that when her column gets published, we're going to share German beers, because she talked about, and I've been to Germany because I used to work at Porsche Cars, so I know German beers are really good. So we were going to share a beer. And her column appeared in November 6, 2019. She passed away on November 5th, 2019. She saw the story, and it's going to make me cry talking about it. I took it over to her place to let her proof it before I printed it. I knew it was a home run because she started crying when she was reading it. Anyway, so her story's in that. I just want to read the first paragraph to that story. While most girls her age were spending the night together with friends, having pillow fights and wondering if one day they would meet the man of their dreams, she was huddled with complete strangers in the air raid shelters, waiting for the bombs to stop falling and wondering if they were going to be alive to see the sun rise the following day. Hers was a childhood unlike any other. So anyway, her story's in that book, and it is really good. And I hate that she never wrote and I couldn't read her handwriting, and a lot of it was in German, because I told her son I'd try to transcribe it and make it into a book, but he didn't think that he didn't want to see it in print, I guess. Okay, Timbuktu and Back. These are all pandemic books. Timbuktu and Back it's my 9th and last book about running. I'm not writing any more books about running. And all of them are biographical-ish in nature. None of them are training books because I believe nobody needs a coach. You can figure it out on your own. You don't need coaches to tell you how to run. So I've got a guarantee for you on this book. Here's my guarantee. If you buy this book for a runner, I guarantee it will be the best book about running they've ever read. If not, I will refund every penny you paid for it that I haven't already spent. Okay? That's the way to say it. It really is entertaining. And you don't have to be a runner to like it, and it is short attention span theater. So, a book I had a lot of fun with, and this is a really short one. You can read it probably by the time I finish talking. It's called Breathing Fire, My Season with the Dragons. So, my grandson played basketball in first grade. The first night of practice, the coach asked the kids to all show him their crossover dribbles, which is like asking one of you to come do brain surgery on me right now. Okay? So I said, okay, I'm coaching next year. So next year, I was the coach. And they wanted to be called the Dragons, which I thought was cool, because it made a really cool title for a book, right? So during the course of the season, I just took notes after every practice and after every game. And I decided that's something he probably is going to want to look at when he gets older. Well, 6 years later, he hadn't read it yet, but still. One of my favorite stories in the book is I had 8 kids, 7 second graders and a first grader, and the first grader was named Garrett. He'd never played basketball before. So I handed him the ball, and his dad was there. I said, is he right or left-handed? His dad says, I don't know. How come you not know? I said, I can know in a heartbeat. Watch. And I handed him the ball. I said, Garrett, flip the ball up in the air. And it was like a cat in a ball of yarn. So I said, do it again. And he kept doing the same thing. And I never could tell that first time. I think it took me about the 3rd game until I finally thought he was right-handed. Anyway, but the book is really entertaining. I think it's got a lot of tips for coaches that they might not think about. Things like double tie your kids' shoelaces because you don't want to waste a timeout to run out on the court and tie the shoes. That happens. Always bring a pump to practice because you're always going to have those kids that come to the balls that are flat. So, if you don't mind, let me backtrack just for a second to Timbuktu and Back. Where did I get what a weird title, right? You've never run to Timbuktu, have you? No, I don't even know where it is. But here's the story behind that. I was at my sister. She lives up in Maryland, and there's a restaurant about 4 miles from her house, and the restaurant's name is Timbuktu. And that morning, we ate there the night before, so I knew the way. So I ran there, a little past it, came back, and of course, my sister said, where'd you run to? I said, Timbuktu and Back. It made actual sense. And the reason I say that is because people say, how far do you run? If I said 10 miles or 50 or 100 or 200, you get the same kind of reaction because it's far, right? If you're not a runner, it's far. So the Timbuktu is something everybody can relate to. Thus the title. And it's also, the subtitle is called A Running Commentary. And again, it comes with a money-back guarantee. And the last book that I wrote, and this one means more to me than any that I've ever written. I guess maybe not all, but some of you know that we lost our son a couple of years ago, not quite 2 years ago. And my best friend Al, he called me and he said, I don't know what to say. I can't find the words, and that was enough because I know what I've known him for 30 years, but that stuck with me. Finding the words, and I said that's what I need to do. I need to write about this because I've written a lot about people, places, and things I've lost over the years. Whether it be a pet or a house when we moved out of Peachtree City, or a tree that we got taken down our front yard that meant a lot to me because that's where we used to practice bad hops with the kids when I'd throw them to Josh and they'd hit a root and practice bad hops like that. So things that I lost over the years mean a lot to me, and I just kind of put it in a big compilation, and the book is called Finding the Words, and the subtitle is Coping with Loss the Best Way I Know, because that's the best way I knew was to write about it. So that's what that book is all about. In fact, Al read it, and Al asked me before I even wrote that book, he asked me to deliver his eulogy when he passes. He's 10 years older than me, and my last boss when I worked at Porsche, he asked me to deliver his eulogy, and he's 10 years younger than me. So I don't know if either one of you get their wish, but it's the hardest thing I've ever written, but I also think it's the best thing I've ever written. And again, it's in that format of short attention span theater. All the chapters are short and terse, and they get right to the point. And my wish is that the book will, help in preserving Josh's memory. And his dream was always to leave an awesome legacy. So Cindy and I, that's kind of our mission right now. We're doing things along those lines. And when we're, I want to read this one review first. It's got, more than a dozen reviews on Amazon, which I really appreciate because none of them are like Squawk Box. but this one kind of stood out. This review. My daughter had come home from college to attend a memorial for a friend that had died from a drug overdose. She perused through the book. After reading why the author had written it, she asked to give it to her friend's mom. The mom was grateful that she was given a book written by a person that was suffering like she was. She wasn't alone. Scott wrote this to help him grieve for the son he lost to drugs. It's written with insight and clarity about others, including his pets, that have passed and how they touched his life. When he writes about Josh, you can feel the anguish come through the pages. Through his written words, Scott wants us to know that Josh's life and death have purpose and meaning to learn from. It's a thoughtful and inspirational read. So that was probably the one I liked the most. That captures the essence of what the book was about. And I know it's selling tonight for $10, but just so you know, if you order on Amazon, it's $10.21 because 10/21 was Josh's birthday.
Aww.
So that's why the price. And it's a book that actually would warrant a lot bigger price than that, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted it to be $10.21. So something that Cindy and I did at Christmas, we started this at Christmas, and we're going to pass these out. We have random act of kindness cards. We're asking that you at some point do a random act of kindness for someone and in Josh's memory, and we have a card to give. It can be holding a door open for somebody, giving a seat on the MARTA, buying somebody a cup of coffee, whatever it is. If you do it, we'd ask that you do it in Josh's memory. So we have cards for that. And also, if you come up here, please take one of my business cards. So these business cards, I crafted them on Shutterfly last year, and I wasn't super happy with them, and they were in my work in progress box. So when we ordered our Christmas cards this year, somehow they unleashed these skills. So I got a couple hundred of these. So please take one and use them for a bookmark, and if not, use them to swap out of your piece or whatever. Just take one. I got so many. And Matt, I appreciate your time tonight. Is it 10:30 yet? Thanks, y'all.
That was so fabulous. Thank you to both of you. We really appreciate it. As you can see, there's tremendous wit and grace and joy, humor, sadness, all those things wrapped up in these amazing books that can be yours tonight. And they're happy to stay for a while and sign your books, so please take advantage of that. Thank you so much. Maureen, do you want to say anything about next month? Okay. So Maureen is in charge of next month's program. It's going to be one you don't want to miss. Here she is.
Thanks. All right, so next month we're doing a roast and toast and boast Nancy Roy. So we all know and love Nancy Roy. If you don't know love Nancy Roy, you need to come to the program in February and find out why we all do, and then you will too. It's going to be a fun evening. It's not going to be just standing up here saying Nancy Roy is the most wonderful person in Sonoy. I promise you, you're going to be laughing. You might want to bring your tissues because you will be laughing that hard. It's really going to be fun. We're going to have some really big surprises that Nancy doesn't know about. So it'll be exciting, it'll be fun, and you'll be glad you're over here if you come.
Thank you. There you go, Steve.
Thanks, everybody. It's kind of neat to have so many different personalities in the society, and it's really fun to get to know everybody and hear the stories. When the board got assembled this term, we all went around and we were describing something that we didn't know about, or something that you may not know about somebody else, and I was really surprised to hear Dennis's story about President Ford, so you should talk to him or corner him after the end of the meeting and hear him. But also, just every one of you have a story, and that's what's so kind of neat about a small town and getting to know everybody on a personal level. It's really neat to hear your personal story. And so whether you come up here and speak in front of a microphone or have a conversation one-on-one, do that. That's great to hear small town stories from small town people. So in closing, don't forget we've got a donation jar in the hallway, so if you'd like to donate, please do so. And please invite your friends and neighbors to join this great group.